we have brought you together to give you an update on where we're at in the response of our storm. The current update is we have assisted 33 residents with sheltering. We have road closures that are constantly changing based on the amount of rain that we get, based on the amount of rain that's water that goes down. So we do not have a completely accurate number of streets that we can give you right now. But we are asking that the message be, if you come up to a flooded street, do not drive through flooded streets. The sheriff, I'm going to steal one of his phrases, turn around, don't drown. Do not drive through stuff that you cannot see. Pasco County Public Transportation has resumed regular bus service on limited routes, and you need to check our website at www.pascocountyfl.net for updates, or specific to PCPT, you call 727-834-3322. Want to give some flood tips that have been approved by the by the Pasco County Department of Health. Number one, avoid walking, driving, or playing in flooded water. Floodwaters may be contaminated. Do not eat food which may have come in contact with floodwaters. Children playing in floodwaters could become sick or bitten by snakes or floating insects. Floodwater may be much deeper than it looks. Driving or walking through the flooded roads can present a drowning risk. If your well has flooded, make sure you test it for bacterial contamination. You can contact the Pasco County Environmental Lab or laboratory certified by the state to perform a drinking water analysis. For areas where wells have been impacted by flooding, Pasco County will be providing water for a small fee of $7 through the Pasco County Environmental Lab, and that should be water testing through that lab. Parks. Our Pasco County Parks, Recreation, Natural Resources staff is currently assessing storm damage at county passive nature parks. All recreational centers are open, but the following parks currently remain closed: Robert J. Strickland, Hudson Beach Park; Robert K. Reese, or Green K Park; Eagle Point Park; Key Vista Nature Park; Anclote Gulf Park; Anclote River Park; J.B. Starkey Wilderness Park; Middle Lake Park; Withlacoochee River Park. The boat ramp at Moon Lake Park is closed. Cruz Lake Park has completed damage assessment and is now open. For helpful information, we're asking people to report flooding or storm-related damage to Pasco County by calling 727-847-2411. Anyone that has any damage to their property, whether it's extremely minor, such as aluminum awnings or shingles, all the way to trees down on houses, need to report that damage to us at 727-847-2411. Residents are invited to post related photos regarding their damage utilizing the hashtag Pasco Storm or hashtag Pasco County. If you have an emergency, you need to dial 911. We have extra operators on duty to handle the call volume. Today, one last thing, we did have 32 requests overnight for evacuation or rescue assistance. That occurred between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. this morning. Today I'm joined by the Honorable Catherine Starkey, District 3 Board Chairman, County Administrator Michelle Baker, Chris Nacco, Pasco County Sheriff, Fire Chief Scott Casson, and I'd also like to thank Senator Jack Latvala for coming by and touring our damage and being involved in our recovery efforts. At this time, I'm going to allow the other speakers to come up and address issues that are specific to them, and I will start with Chairman Starkey.
Good afternoon, Catherine Starkey, Chair of the Pasco County Commission, and I want to give a real shout out to our staff and to the sheriff. We've, I think, done a great job during this storm event. We've been out, I know I've been out, and the other commissioners driving our areas and looking at the storm damage and talking with our residents. And I feel really good that we've weathered this storm a lot better than in the past. And I know we have some challenges still ahead of us, but I think we're in pretty good shape. And I just give kudos to the staff and to our residents for doing a great job. So we'll see what happens with the afternoon rains and the rivers as they come up, but I'm confident that we're going to be in better shape this time. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. A couple of things. First and foremost, to our first responders, the deputies, police, fire rescue, the 911 call center, the men and women in the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. Thank you very much. To their families, thank you. While their loved ones are out here protecting everybody, they're at home with the families, making sure everything's okay in the home front. So I want to say thank you to their families and thank you to those first responders. The other one too is there's a lot of people out there right now that aren't talked about, but you got the tow truck drivers out there. They're doing a phenomenal job. You got licensed contractors, and I'll emphasize that, licensed contractors that are out there helping people, because when your power goes out, your world is upside down. And so I can tell you there's a lot of people in this community pulling together, working together, and that just shows what our community is about. The other side of it too is, during this storm, you can talk about Murphy's Law hitting, and kudos to the fire and the Chief Casson Fire Department. Working together, everybody. You talk about teamwork. When Bayonet Point had the emergency and had to evacuate everybody, as the storm's approaching, that happens. This is really, you can talk about first responders working very well together. They did an outstanding job, and kudos to the chief and the fire department for all they did out there. The one thing we also want to make sure is that, as we talk about community, is that for our citizens, right now, our Pasco Sheriff's Office Twitter account and our Facebook page, it's a community of everybody coming together and sharing information of roads closed, damage control. So please go into the Pasco Sheriff's Office Twitter account, Facebook page, share your information. We'll be able to get it out there, because you may walk outside and see something that nobody else has, and you sharing that information will be able to provide us better ability to respond and react and save somebody. A couple of things that have been going on right now. With that, we want to get some messaging out there. First of all, we've had 53 additional personnel deployed out on the streets, responding to calls, responding for citizens this morning. We're in several locations responding to a possible tornado touchdown, flooding. So our deputies have been out there working along with everybody else from emergency operations. Low-lying areas, as everybody knows, has been impacted, and they're still impacted. And as I was driving around the county, you can see that there are a lot of areas, tides haven't come in all the way yet, but yet the seawalls are already breached. So we want to make sure people are aware. If they need to still get sandbags, prepare before high tide, please do that. The other one too is a couple of safety things. As you heard Director Guthrie say, don't play in water. Don't play in puddles. Those are those type of things, because that water, it's filled with bacteria, disease, we don't know what it is, and little kids like to put things in their mouths, and they'll start drinking that water and get them sick. So we're trying to precaution people, stay away from that standing water. Don't get your inner tube out. This is not a time, it's not a lazy river out there. These are dangerous. There's wires, there's sticks. You can get it could be a very dangerous situation. The other one too is we want to give a warning out there for everybody. As you know, there's a lot of standing water. Mosquitoes with the heat, they're going to start breeding out there. So please, start thinking ahead, planning, get mosquito repellent with DEET, because as this starts growing with a lot of standing water out there, it's going to cause a lot of mosquitoes. And I want to thank our people in mosquito control, because they're already out there being proactive. And they don't get the kudos they deserve either, but it's going to be critical. They're out there protecting us in the next several weeks. The other one too, we talk about the water. Even if you have a lifted vehicle, it's not a sport to go driving down the street as fast as you can, causing wakes. Those wakes go onto people's property and it destroys them. So we just encourage people, if you have to drive slowly. You're not out there causing puddles, and you're not causing those wakes. But as I go back to people with lifted vehicles, It's not a sport to go out there right now and drive as fast as you can, because all you're doing is ruining somebody's property and possibly causing more flooding for them. As I go back to about unlicensed contractors, during the next several days, there's going to be a lot of people calling out there. So I recommend that they go into the Division of Business and Professional Regulation website, find out who are licensed contractors, because if you have home repairs, if you have damage, you need to make sure you get people that are licensed and can actually do the job and won't rip you off. So with that, those are a couple of things we want to put out there. But the other side of it is, this is also a mental health issue. People are stressed right now. For the past several days, we've been preparing for this storm, weren't sure where it was going. So, as people are repairing their homes, fixing things up, we also recommend that, over the next several days, a holiday weekend, just relax. Hopefully by Tuesday, life is back to normal, but we know this is a very stressful time for everybody. For parents that are home with their kids who thought they thought summer was over and their kids were going to go back to school, it got extended a little bit. But we're trying to make sure that people realize, 24 hours of worrying about this storm, being up all last night, hearing that wind, being awoken several times, please, over the next several days, just try to relax. We'll get back to normal. Everything's going to be fine. But again, I ask everybody, go to the Pasco Sheriff's Office Facebook page, Pasco Sheriff's Office Twitter account, share information, because the more we're working together and sharing information, the better we're going to be. Thank you very much.
The sheriff gave you some great tips, but I want to add one more. As I was driving around last night and this morning, I have seen multiple cars in the ditches upside down. I just passed a couple of them on State Road 54. So if you do not need to be out driving, please, parents, families, stay off the roads. It's very slick out there, and we don't need any more accidents. I've seen at least 3 upside down cars in the last 10 hours. So thank you.
Michelle Baker, County Administrator. I just want to echo the Sheriff and the Commissioner's comments about the outstanding coordinated effort that's going on. And that coordinated effort not only includes our first responders and other county staff, but it also includes dozens of volunteers and neighbors helping neighbors. And so it takes a community to respond to an event like this. And so thank you to everyone who is doing something to help a neighbor. And for those who are working as volunteers assisting in the program, and to all the staff in all of our agencies that are working together. I think that the worst of this is over and the recovery is underway, and we are continuing to prioritize resources to provide the necessary assistance to our residents. In particular, it's very difficult for those folks who are in low-lying and coastal flood-prone areas, because there has been flooding. There will continue to be flooding through this high tide. We are aware of the flooding and we are working to find solutions, but please go ahead and call the Customer Service Center at 727-847-2411 to report flooding or other damage, so that we ensure that we have teams out there to provide you the assistance that is necessary. So again, please don't assume we know. Please call us and report anything that you see in terms of damage at 727-847-2411. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Director Guthrie to facilitate the questions and answers.
I believe I'm going to anticipate 3 questions, so I want to talk about the next phase of what's happened. We've talked about the response, and then we're going to be starting to try to get back to normal. I want our community to know that Pasco County, between the Sheriff's Office, the Fire Department, our building inspections teams, and our stormwater teams, they're going to be out in your neighborhoods. They're going to be out looking at damage. They're going to be doing damage assessment. We will have a minimum of 20 2-person damage assessment teams that are going to be moving throughout the community over the next several days. What are they out there doing? They're out there looking at your property. They will not be coming on your property. We will start with what is referred to as windshield assessments, moving down every road within Pasco County to determine what has been damaged. In the coming days, we will go back to those properties and actually work with the homeowners and start doing what is referred to as a 360 or a complete damage assessment, so that we can start getting our numbers for potential federal declaration and reimbursement. So I want folks to know that that'll happen. These individuals will be proper uniformed and or properly marked with some type of county ID, so the residents will know exactly who they are and what their business is for being there. Next, 3,788 homes are still without power as of 11 a.m. in Pasco County. We will get that number updated for you as quickly as we possibly can, but that was the latest information we got from all of our electrical authorities. And then the last, I had received a lot of questions today about storm surge. We did have 4.3 feet of storm surge in Pasco County. The National Weather Service gave us that data earlier today, which was very consistent with what all the media markets were putting out that we would be receiving here. So with that, I want to make sure I give you some of those stats. I will start taking any questions that anybody might have. Just remember that as we go into the questions, if any of our Spanish-speaking affiliates have questions, I will answer it in English, and then I will move over and let Vanessa answer the same question in Spanish. So I will start in the back. I see that question.
What neighborhoods are you guys most concerned about in Pasco County?
Well, right now, all of our neighborhoods are vulnerable to some degree. We have, and the damage is it's different as it goes from one side of the county to the other side of the county. We have coastal flooding, storm surge flooding on the west side of the county, on the other side, on the west side of 19. As you go all the way across the county, the sheriff referred to a potential tornado that may touch down sometime last night after the 1 o'clock hour. We have our crews out there along with the sheriff's office crews assessing that damage, trying to determine if that happened. When the winds are favorable, because it is in such a remote area, we have requested the sheriff's office, and the sheriff has granted it an overflight of that area with their helicopter to make sure that everything is fine out there. So it runs the gamut from the west side to the east side. Typically, we're seeing more of the tree damage and things like that in the center to the east side of the county, more flooding damage in the west side of the county.
Can you say where the tornado touched down or the Toledo might have touched down?
Again, it's this is not confirmed,
Right.
but it's in damage which it looks indicative of a tornado, and that is it's in the Crystal Springs area. It's in the Green Swamp. It's out on the very extreme southeastern portion of our county.
So cross street, cross road?
One of the streets that came in last night reporting that type of damage and that the sheriff's office went to along with fire rescue was Gator.
Gator?
Gator, just like the University of Florida. Gator.
Gator Street.
Street.
Drive.
That's correct.
Yeah, we have a crew right now that over at the the Palm Terrace Gardens, Fox Bloom and Glover Road over there. I don't know if you're familiar with that area. Just telling me that water there is waist high. People are concerned because it's not designated as a flood zone. What do you say to folks like that?
So, again, we know that we have areas that flood. This is in the Ironbark area. It's in a location that we know is going to flood. We are currently putting in a system right now to work that area. We are laying about 1,000 foot of hose with 3 pumps, a 6-inch pump and 2 8-inch pumps to get that pumped into another reservoir system to start helping those individuals. Now, the long-term solution is, and I know you guys will say, Kevin, you sound like a broken record, but the county has over $300 million in capital improvement projects that are stormwater related. That is going to be a long-term project problem. And what we're trying to do here is not only does that solution involve infrastructure, it involves repetitive loss and then buying those properties out. That's very important to this particular disaster in a federal declaration. Without getting into a training seminar, there will be monies that will open up if we receive a federal declaration for those purposes. We want to ensure that in Pasco County, we're doing our proper damage assessment so that we meet our proper thresholds so that we can qualify for federal grant money next year and the coming years to continue with property acquisition, infrastructure projects that are grant funded so that taxpayers don't have to pay it out of assessment fees and things of this nature in the general fund budget. So what I would say to those folks is, we feel your pain. We're right there with you. We want to help you. We need to know about all the locations. We've been asking that for a couple of days now. When you have flooding, you need to report it. We do know about this particular area, and we are in there right now with several stormwater crews and public work crews trying to get that particular section pumped over to another location. We've been traditionally doing this with a tanker, filling up a 3,000 gallon tanker and moving it out of the way, 3,000 gallons at a time. This is going to afford us the opportunity to have a constant pump running to a different reservoir system, which should be able to take most of that
So
capacity.
you can remind citizens about the customer service line.
All right, and also, as Doug Tobin, PIO, mentioned, for reporting of those events, we want people to contact our customer service department at 727-847-2411.
In the back, CT?
Kevin, the fact that you had to help 33 residents, do you think people still get complacent sometimes, the fact that the storm was going to go up to the panhandle and maybe we didn't worry about it? Or, should the media have been stronger with their warnings? Should you guys have been stronger? Was there ever a time where you thought about an evacuation?
I think there was some, this storm, no storm is ever like. The county administrator did this for a number of years before I was involved in this business. She was obviously, as many of you know, the deputy director of emergency management in Miami-Dade when Hurricane Andrew came along. But I think we share the sentiment that there's no one storm that's exactly the same. We heard people say, well, this was a lot like Debbie, this was a lot like Dennis, this was a lot like Faye. Each storm is unique. We've been talking about this storm for 8 days. I think that in the beginning, there might have been some complacency. We had passed out, prior to this event, 33,000 sandbags in Pasco County over the last 2 months with the 2 storms that we had prior to this, Tropical Storm Colin and then the rain events. I believe in the beginning when we were talking about this, people said, it's okay, I'm prepared, maybe a little bit of complacency. But what we saw starting on Monday of this week, we passed out over 38,000 sandbags just this week alone. The Sheriff's Office and Pasco County Public Works Department were out there every day in the rain, passing those sandbags out. Again, my thanks to the Sheriff for helping us and our community get those bags out. So I think the complacency was there, but then when they saw that it was heading in this direction, being now the first hurricane that's hit the state of Florida in about a decade, I think that people heeded our warnings. They prepared themselves. The fact that we only have 33 people sheltered right now says a lot about a community that has had a lot of disasters. And I don't think that they grew complacent. I think they got prepared and they responded accordingly.
So where are those folks? Where are you sheltering them?
They're in 2 different shelters. They're in 2 different methodologies of sheltering. One is more commercial. The other one is, and I will not list that particular name, but the other one is the Fasano shelter. And that's the Fasano Regional Hurricane Shelter up to our north here. But we have basically east side, west side, and we have the majority of them sheltered at Fasano.
So the east side, the one you didn't name, is that like a hotel or?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into all the details right now on that because we're trying to protect the people that are actually in those shelters. Okay.
River levels still rising.
Yes.
We got a note about the Anclo River expected to reach flood stage on Sunday. What's the message to the people living out there? Even though the storm seems to have moved north, they still need to be vigilant about that.
That's correct. We are going to see the Anclo River go into either action stage or minor flood stage. And again, that's going to be on, as you said, Saturday and going into Sunday. We're not going to see the flooding issue that we saw based on the current predictions that we saw back last year. It will not come up over the top of Elfers Parkway and things of that nature. It's going to be at its banks. It's going to be, of course, I wasn't here last year. I'm going off the data that people have told me, of course. And I'm sorry?
It could be in yards.
It could be in yards, but we're not looking at it to go into the, into the streets affecting 54, Trinity, Elfers, and so on.
The officials shared a picture in the Facebook about a sinkhole. Is any other place or only that one you got there?
This is a washout.
Washout in Lake Padgett area.
Okay, I was going to say that was a washout. I was going to say you were catching me off guard with a sinkhole. That's the first I'd heard of that. But yes, we do have washouts, but that was strictly a washout.
Where's that?
Lake Padgett.
All right, I'm going to let the county administrator specifically speak to that particular situation.
Well, I don't want to speak to specifically that particular situation, but I do want to emphasize that there are roads that were severely damaged last summer that have been severely damaged again because the permanent repairs have not been possible. And so again, I would emphasize this is an emergency. This is not a sightseeing. And so when there are barricades blocking roads, please don't drive around them. Please don't move them. They're there because there's been a washout in the road, or the water's too deep, or the road has started to fail and you might not be able to see that. But we do have over 150 roads that failed last year that have not had their permanent repair yet. So that is a concern of ours. We will be continuing to monitor that, but please respect the barricades. When the deputies tell you don't be driving through here, please respect that, because we do have a number of roads with significant damage to them.
Are there any other questions? I recognize that was a Spanish-speaking station, and we'll come to you afterwards as we normally do.
Going back to what I asked about outbursts, can you kind of continue with your thought about what we need to let residents know?
So again, it's about preparation. You know, Sheriff Naco has already mentioned sandbagging. Because of that, we still have self-serve sandbags. We have bags out at all of those locations. It is truly going to be a self-serve as we're trying to get out. A lot of our county resources are out trying to get this damage assessment done, find out the needs, and respond to those things. But folks can still come to the locations that have sand. They can fill the sandbags themselves. They can get sandbags and continue to prepare themselves as we get ready to go into flood stage. And another thing that they can do is self-evacuate. If they know that they're going to flood, we highly encourage self-evacuation. Go stay with a friend or loved one.
The councilwoman mentioned this. You mentioned that this wasn't as bad as years past. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can only speak to the parts of the county that I've been driving around. I know there are some areas that may have experienced something worse in the past, because we didn't deal with storm surge, I believe, in the last event. So, of course, that's going to create a different set of circumstances. But in the southwestern part of Pasco, we've been working diligently to clean out some ditches, to lower some weirs, to get the water moving out of the county faster. We've had a crew in cleaning up the Anclo River, and so what I heard from my constituents as I went through all those neighborhoods this morning is that they fared much better, and they saw the water get out of their neighborhoods much quicker during this event. So they're actually quite pleased. Now I know there's other areas in the county that haven't fared as well, and I'll be driving around those myself later. But so we are doing some things. We are moving in the right direction. We have a lot of work to do. $300 million worth of projects is just a huge challenge for this county. But we're going to find a way, and we are very appreciative to Senator Latvala for coming up and taking a look at the challenges we face. Just a couple weeks ago, he came up, and with Representative Amanda Murphy, we drove around this part of Pasco County to show him the stormwater issues that we're facing and the damaged roads, so he could get a first-hand account of just the magnitude of the challenge. So, but I think that's why. Any more questions for me?
Any more questions at all?
So just to be clear, the 33 people were moved into shelters, but do you have any injuries or anything like that are directly linked to the flooding or the waters?
We did have, to my knowledge, and I'll ask Chief Casson if he should have any additional information. To my knowledge, we only had one actual injury, and that was a young lady that was in the Massachusetts area, that we have some Massachusetts and Aurora area. She was out in the yard trying to walk around and maneuver around, and she slipped, fell, and potentially hit her head, I believe. So she was transported to the hospital, but to our knowledge at this point, that is the only injury that we've had in this, and that was around 4 a.m. this morning.
I do have one last question. How concerned are we, with, once again, you've been saying the dangers of, the health hazards and the dangers of all of this stuff, and we have one of the hospitals closed down. You have a 12-minute drive to the closest hospital, which is in Trinity. to me, that seems like a safety concern.
Yeah, and I'm going to, it is a concern, but I want to assure that we have some of the best fire rescue paramedics in the country. And I'm going to let, before I get down there, before I get down that hall, I'm going to let Chief Casson come and talk about how that EMS procedure worked, or a little bit to that EMS procedure, and what, let him set the minds of the residents at peace, if you will.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon. Scott Casson, Fire Chief, Pasco Fire Rescue. Like Kevin mentioned, all of our paramedics and EMTs are trained, to the highest level of pre-hospital care, and they know where to take certain patients based on their complaint. So even though there's a hospital out of the mix that we can't use, there are several other hospitals in the area, and we just take that into consideration because we really don't have any other choice. So we've been in contact with all of the area hospitals. We're constantly in contact with them through our dispatch center to find out what their censuses are, so we know whether or not we can take them there to begin with, because if they're full, then we have to go somewhere else. But so far, as of today, now that we're a couple days into operating without that hospital, we have not run into any problems going anywhere else.
But it is, once again, pre-hospital care. I
Correct.
think that's the term, the key term there, that it's It's pre-hospital care. It's not actual emergency room type of care that these people are getting. Is it? Is there an extra, hazard here for folks?
I do not believe so. You do mention it is pre-hospital. However, most of the care that we can provide is very similar to what you get in the emergency department. And our paramedics and EMTs are in constant contact with the hospitals, so they are able to mobilize certain specialties if they're required as we're transporting. So we're able to accommodate that no matter really what the distance is to the hospital.
How much extra concern do you have about Zika now? You've got so much extra water. Obviously, the mosquito issue. Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
I'm going to turf that back off to Kevin.
The Zika.
So, rain Zika. Somebody was saying that this is my 6th incident since I've been here, and so on. But so Zika, we are worried. I shouldn't say we're worried about Zika. What we want to do is, again, it's a preparation. Just like everything, every hazard that you have that Pasco County can face, there is a preparation. We have to be prepared. We have to know the risk. We have to, in this particular situation, as the sheriff mentioned, if people wear the protective clothing, if they wear the mosquito repellent that contains DEET, if they're smart, I have no concerns about the Zika issue in Pasco County. Again, we have to have the proper preparations. If people will follow those preparations, we will be just fine. We need to obviously scan for standing water. Try to keep that, kid pools, tires, things of that nature. Try to get those things dumped out to where that's not standing, and then work with our mosquito control. If you've got issues going on, give them a call and let them know that you're having issues with mosquitoes in the area. So.
And they're out and about. I ran into 2 trucks this morning out in the neighborhood.
Apellido y tu título profesional. Buenos días, mi nombre es Vanessa Rogers, estoy con la división de zoning aquí en el condado de Pasco County.
Vanessa, háblanos un poquito sobre las personas que tuvieron que ser evacuadas.
Bueno, hasta el día tenemos contadas 33 residencias que han sido refugiados del huracán. En estos momentos los tienen en 2 diferentes áreas. Lo que van a hacer ahora próximamente es que van a tomar unos equipos para que puedan revisar, van a ser 20 equipos de 2 personas en cada carro, para analizar los daños de las casas y las viviendas de esas personas que han sido refugiados. Si tienen habilidad de regresar a su domicilio, pues le van a ayudar para que puedan regresar a su domicilio lo más antes posible. Si esos residentes no pueden llegar o regresar a su domicilio, nuestros departamentos de comunidad va a hablar con esos residentes a ver si hay algunas diferentes opciones que podemos ayudarlos para que puedan llegar a una locación alternativa hasta que se resuelva lo de la inundación de su casa.
¿Cuáles son algunas de las preocupaciones, o no preocupaciones, pero sugerencias que se le está dando al público en cuanto a mantenerse sanos Escuchamos, miren, no se metan, pueden haber serpientes. ¿Qué tipo de consejos le están dando al público?
Lo más importante, el consejo que le están entregando todos los diferentes departamentos es que le están avisando que no manejen en estas aguas, pueden dañar sus carros, muchas de las aguas que han sido paradas por mucho tiempo, pueden tener muchas bacterias, pueden estar contaminadas. Entonces, para que uno se pueda mantener sano, traten de evitar andar en estas aguas y así se pueden quedar un poco más salvos. Si ven que hay mucha agua o si ven que hay inundaciones, pueden llamar a los departamentos del servicio de clientes aquí con el condado para reportar nuevos daños. El número telefónico es 727-847-2411. Muchas gracias.